From ancient Greece to the beginnings of the Vikings, stay tuned to number 1 to find out what is considered the oldest written literary work of all time. Number 10. The Odyssey. Monsters, fighting, adventures, gods, and warriors. The Odyssey is a Greek epic poem about Odysseus, the King of Ithaca, who, according to myth, fought in the Trojan War, and who had a really hard time trying to get home after the war. He annoys the god Poseidon because he injured his Cyclopes son. His journey is full of ill fortune, even getting stuck with a witch, betrayed by his crew. Oh, and he has to venture to the underworld and speak to the dead. After a long war and an unlucky journey home, Odysseus finally made it, but after 20 years away, he only returned to find his home being threatened. Likely composed towards the end of the 8th century BC in a Greek-occupied area on the seaboard of western Turkey, the story is attributed to a guy known as Homer, but we don't actually know who Homer is. What we do know is that the Greek epic poems are the result of a long and rich tradition of oral poetry, full of generations of highly skilled poets and singers. Also, there were a lot of other questions surrounding the works, like what order is it meant to be read in? Was it all written by the same person? How much, if any, is based on historical events? It's clear that the work, full of gods and mythical creatures, is worth reading. And when you do, just remember it was written around 2,700 years ago. Number 9. The Iliad. Since we've already talked about Homer's Odyssey, it would be wrong to forget about the Iliad, the second Greek epic poem attributed to Homer. This one is full of fighting and focuses on the Trojan War and the great Homeric heroes like Prince Hector, Achilles, Agamemnon, and more. The story begins in the 10th year of the war between Troy and the king of Spartan, Mycenae, and other Aegean areas. It includes detailed battle scenes, one-to-one fighting scenes between heroes, and one that just might bring tears to your eyes. The story behind the Trojan War is one that captivates people because of its romance and violence. Started because the Trojan prince stole Helen, the wife of King Menelaus of Spartan, the war dragged on until Odysseus, yep, the same guy from the Odyssey, came up with the idea of building a big wooden horse and hiding the warriors inside. We won't give too much away in case you decide to visit the stories of the Greek epic poems. And if you haven't got time to read the book, you could always check out the film Helen of Troy. But this is only an adaptation of the story. What do you think about Iliad and the Odyssey? Let us know in the comments below. While you're there, take a moment to subscribe for more Zero to Hero videos. Number 8. Metamorphoses by Ovid. The Metamorphoses by Ovid is a compilation of epic poetry of various genres, such as love, didactic, tragic, and comic. Written in Latin, it was written and published in Rome in 8 AD. Set during the imperial Rome, this poem includes themes like the power of art, the sadness of love, and the pervasiveness of metamorphosis. In all, the Metamorphoses consists of 15 books, which can be divided into 6 sections that focus on different times and events. If you're looking for a classic that's complex and interesting, the Metamorphoses are a good place to start. They are a collection of stories, and of stories within stories, because the author plays with many fables that the original intended audience would be familiar with. 2 of them we've already included on this list, the Iliad and the Odyssey. Number 7. The Prose Edda. We're moving away from the standard classics from ancient Greece or classical Rome, and we're going to delve into the Prose Edda, which is an Old Norse work of literature dating from the 13th century AD. So it's at least 1,000 years later than many of the other examples included so far. Written by Snorri Sturluson, the Prose Edda is Sturluson's attempt to create a guide richly detailed to the oldest and earliest examples of Scandinavian verse and myth. Many of the characters, plots, and themes contained within the legends discussed in the Prose Edda have gone to become inspirations for many more modern stories, films, and TV programs. Unfortunately, although we do have 6 manuscripts from the Middle Ages and one from a bit later in the 16th century, none of these have survived completely, and each has a variation. Unless you have an interest in Norse mythology or stories, it's unlikely that you get much enjoyment out of this piece, but it's still worthy of being included on this list as a medieval masterpiece that offers a window into some of the myth and legends of the people who would later be known as the Vikings. If you do like Vikings, you should check out our video showcasing Viking warriors. Number 6. Theogony. The Theogony, composed by Hesiod in the 7th century BC, is a poem written in the epic dialect of ancient Greek. The term theogony means birth the gods, and the poem, or hymn, is mainly to Zeus, but it also encompasses the origin of the world and of other gods. It is thanks to Hesiod that today we can read about the important role that myths and legends about the gods played in ancient Greek culture. The supposed purpose of the works was to put in order in Greek mythology, as to prior to this, the stories would have been recounted orally and possibly recounted slightly differently on occasion. This is one book you will want to read to learn more about Greek mythology. Number 5. Epic of Gilgamesh. The next entry is another great epic poem, but this one comes from ancient Mesopotamia, so it's a lot older than the other epic poems included on this list. In fact, the Epic of Gilgamesh is often considered the earliest surviving great piece of literature. As a result, it's not surprising that the ancient authors of the stories that make up the Epic of Gilgamesh are anonymous. The latest version of the poem found dates from no later than 600 BC and was signed by Sinliki-un-Nini. Many place the time of its writings between 2700 BC and around 600 BC, which is a big expanse of time in the grand scheme of things. It's written in Sumerian, Akkadian, Hurrian, and Hittite, which are all languages which were written in cuneiform script. Full of themes like love as a motivating force, the inevitability of death, and dangerous gods. The epic survives on a number of clay tablets. The work begins with Sumerian poems about Gilgamesh, the king of Uruk, and how when Enkidu dies, Gilgamesh becomes obsessed with his own mortality and embarks on a journey to find the Utnapishtim in the hope that he will have the answers of how Gilgamesh can avoid death. We don't have enough time to discuss more in great details, but there are plenty of books, articles, and documentaries out there about these poems. Number 4. Lysistrata by Aristophanes. Unlike the poems in historical literature already included on this list, this next entry is an example of Greek comedy. Dating from the 5th century BC and written in Athens, the story is based on Lysistrata, a hero who leads the women of Athens in protest that involves the woman denying romantic pleasures to the men until peace with Sparta is established. This was all during the times of the Peloponnesian War, when Athens was fighting against Sparta. Aristophanes was a well-known playwright who lived in the times of other great writers such as Socrates and Thucydides. In all, we knew Aristophanes put on at least 40 plays, but unfortunately, only around 11 of them survived to the modern times. However, we do have evidence of other plays as well. Some have highlighted how complex and bizarre this piece is to read, but nevertheless, if you can ignore the political in-jokes, the wit of the story is worth the attempt to read it. But if you are interested in reading some of the works, it would be worth doing a bit of research about the Peloponnesian War so that you have an understanding of the settings of the plays. Number 3. The Histories. The next entry is the first in a number of non-poem-based literature from everything else included on this list. Also known as the Histories by Herodotus is a classical Greek work, which is considered to be the founding work of history in Western literature. The work was produced as a record of ancient tradition, politics, different cultures, and geography, as well as clashes between different people. It is often regarded by many as one of the fascinating pieces of ancient literature in the world, while others consider it to be influential because of its concentration on the inner workings of politics, culture, and traditions from its contemporary time. The whole work includes a number of separate books which focus on different events and places. Although many people have argued in support that this work is influential, others like Thucydides have concentrated more on the criticism that his work is fanciful and offers only a romantic view of the world. And this view has stuck in modern times, with many classical historians saying that what he says should be taken with a grain of salt. Nevertheless, the fact that this book was written over 2,000 years ago and is the earliest historical piece of literature in Western literature, it's worth knowing something about it. Number 2. Beowulf. Time for more monsters. Now with the Old English epic poem known as Beowulf. As with many ancient texts, there's a lot of debate among scholars and academics about when this poem was composed. And the only debatable thing is the manuscript itself, which has been dated to between 975 and 1025. When it comes to the poem itself, no one knows exactly how it was composed. Many believed it was brought to England by the new migrants and possibly composed for the first time in the 7th century in East Anglia, England. Others have attributed it to other times and places, such as the court of Alfred the Great or Canute the Great, both of whom were kings of England or English kingdoms in the early Middle Ages. So, what's the story about? Well, it's centered on a hero known as Beowulf, who comes to the aid of King Hrothgar, the king of the Danes, because his hall is being stalked by the grotesque monster Grendel. This story is full of heroic battles, like the one with the monster Grendel's mother and even a dragon. Clearly, the man didn't live a boring life. This action-packed story is definitely one worth reading, or you could watch the film of the same name based on the poem. Number 1. The Aeneid. Written as a heroic epic poem by Virgil in around 20 BC, it was probably produced in Rome, northern Italy, and possibly Greece as well. The story contained within the epic is set around the Mediterranean in places like the north coast of Asia Minor, Italy, and Carthage in the aftermath of the Trojan War around 1000 BC, but this date is widely debated. The book wasn't published until after his death, and upon closer inspection, it is full of then-contemporary propaganda about good Roman citizens. The protagonist, Aeneas, is on a journey from Troy, which ultimately sees him in Italy, where he was fated to establish a group of people that would one day lead to the founding of Rome. This story is full of gods, fighting, and of course, romance. In the attempt to get in the way of Aeneas, the god Juno, who really didn't like the Trojan side that Aeneas fought for in the war, incites a romance between Aeneas and Dido, which ultimately ends in Dido's suicide. Throughout the story, you will find scenes which highlight suffering from wanderers, the glory of Rome, and the primacy of fate. Like the Iliad and the Odyssey, the Aeneid is worth reading because it is an interesting exploration of the beliefs and imagination of people who lived, loved, and fought a millennia ago. Have you read any of the entries included on this list? Let us know in the comments below and take care.